everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So I have a fun little video today. We are going to talk about 5 theories from Iron Flame. So let me know after you watch the video, comment down below and let me know some of your theories. Let me know what you think of these theories. So I went online, and this is literally right after I finished the book. And I went online and I tried to figure out, look up people's theories, what they thought, and just be like, oh, that's interesting. That could happen. Or, that doesn't seem plausible. But I picked 5 that could be plausible, okay? So some of them, I don't have a whole lot of detail because I didn't feel like it was right for me to print off all these theories and just read them verbatim, just because that's that person's work and I don't feel right about doing that. But reading the theory and me bringing it up on a video, and just mentioning a few things about the theory, I think is good. And then that can give a discussion in the comments and all kinds of stuff. So without further ado, let's talk about some of the theories that people are coming up with for Iron Flame. Now, the first one, and this has been a big one. Does Violet have venom in her, or is she immune to venom? Now, this theory is coming up because of her brittle bones, her white hair, her how weak she is, and all of that stuff. So some people are saying, well, it was so in the first book, it was a disease or the fever or something that hit her mother when she was in the womb. And so that is why Violet is the way she is. But people have a different theory. They think that either Violet's father was venom, or her mother was being siphoned from a venom, but instead of getting power from Lilith, they took it from Violet. So it's a really interesting theory, Is Violet venom? Or is she immune to venom? And the immunity part, that comes from a specific scene in Iron Flame where they're in Corden and she's fighting a venom. Well, the Duke or the King, I think it was the Duke, he built basically a coliseum, it was a pit. But he built it from stone from the Barrens. And the Barrens, the venom have already taken all of the magic and the power out of there. So the floor with this arena, the venom came down, put his hand to the ground, and was pulling the power from the ground. Well, the only people in danger were Mira, Violet, and Brennan. They were on the ground. Everybody else that was standing on those rocks from the Barrens were fine. But that's because the venom already took the power out of those rocks. So that brings up that theory of, is Violet immune? Because if a venom has already siphoned from her, then she can't be siphoned from again. There's no more power. Well, the only issue with that is that her hair isn't fully white. She's not dust. You know what I mean? Her bones are brittle, yes, but she still has power. So it'll just be interesting if Rebecca Yarros explains this a little bit further on if this theory is true, if it was because her father was Venom or her mother was siphoned from when Violet was in her womb, and instead of the power coming from Lilith, it came from Violet. So it'll be very interesting to see if Rebecca Yarros elaborates on this potential theory in the next book. But that brings up theory number 2 on, saying that Violet's dad was a Venom. Well, does Violet have a different dad from Mira and Brennan? This one I thought was really interesting. And at first I was like, no, that can't be. But, I mean, there's a specific line that her mother says to her, and she says, "You are all that's left of him." Now, some people are taking it as, oh, so was Violet's dad really not her dad? Because Violet's dad was a scribe. Is that really her dad? Or did Lilith have another love of her life that turned Venom, and he wasn't fully Venom yet, but they produced Violet? So is Violet's dad actually alive, but a Venom? Don't know. And it's just weird because it says the line is, "You are all that is left of him." Well, Mira's still alive. Yeah? So that just brings in, okay, people possibly reading in between the lines of, oh, could Violet have a different dad from Mira and Brennan? Interesting. Could be a plot twist. Don't know. Or does Lilith just see Violet's dad in Violet because her dad was a scribe? Violet has a scribe's mind. Like, that could all that saying mean, She might not have a different dad. Brennan, Mira, and Violet might have the same dad. But it's a theory. Could be an interesting plot twist. So, number 3 is a big one. It's really interesting. And so there's a lot going on the internet. Violet's second signet. So some people are saying, predict the future. It could be something that could pertain to the cure for being Venom. I found one that was really interesting, like a chameleon was one. And this one was only because they said Andarna is capable of the same, shown when she hides by a boulder and no one can see she is there. Because she is iridescent, is what I've been hearing her be called. She's an iridescent dragon. She's not black, she's not blue, she's not green, she's not red, orange, all of that. She's a 7th breed of dragon. But because in the book, it shows that her scales change color, people are saying that she's iridescent, which I really like. I like that a lot, instead of her being called a different name for it. Iridescent is just really nice. It gets a nice ring to it, you know what I mean? So then there's another thing of amplifying other signets. That could be Violet's second signet, or distance wielder. So let's go back to predicting the future. That theory has come up because of the dreams that are discussed in the book. So there's, I think, 3 dream scenes. The first one, they're all from Violet's perspective, except for the last one. The last one is from Xaden's perspective. But the first one we know for a fact is Violet. But the second one, people are saying that it's really Xaden's dream, but Violet is seeing it through his eyes. So they're like, is that a predicting the future signet, but being more of a dream walker? So obviously that dream, Xaden's dream, came true because he turned Venom for love to save Violet. But Violet's first dream was where she couldn't run fast enough to get away from the Venom. Is that just a dream, or could that also be her predicting or seeing something that's going to happen in the future? We don't know. And we won't know until probably the 3rd book. Cross your fingers. Because if we have to wait until the 4th book, I don't know what we're going to do. There's not really a whole lot on like what it could be for the cure for being Venom. It's just that maybe her signet has something to do with it. Because signets are what you're needing at the time, right? Well, Xaden just turned Venom. She needs a cure. Even though they say there's no cure. So, we'll keep that in mind. The amplifying other signets. This is an idea because of Mira. So Mira is basically a shield. She's got wards. She can ward around her, right? She's never been able to really broaden her shield outside of the wards. She can only do a little bit. Well, in that scene with the Venom and Corden that Violet was fighting, if Mira wasn't able to extend her shield, Mira Brennan, and as of right now Violet, would have dissipated into dust because the Venom would have taken their power. But Mira was able to extend the shield, and so the 3 siblings were safe. So there's that idea of, oh, she's an amplifier. She can amplify other signets. The other one is a distance wielder. And I think the only reason people are saying this is because Xaden says that it's a rare ability and that there hasn't been one in centuries. So people are just like, oh my gosh, well there hasn't been one in centuries. She's a distance wielder. Because, we always think, our main protagonist is going to have the best of the best. She's going to be special and rare and all that other kind of stuff. But there is also talk in the book of where she doesn't remember falling asleep next to Xaden, because Xaden was in Drazgath. I'm saying that wrong. It started with a D. But then she wakes up next to him. So is that her teleporting? There was some lines between her and Taryn or whatever, but I don't quite remember them. All I know is that Rebecca Yarros has said that Violet's second signet manifested, and you see it in the 2nd book now. Has anyone guessed it correctly? We won't know until probably the third book, which comes out January 21st, 2025, and I pre-ordered it the day it was announced. I'm so excited, guys. So yeah, throw in the comments below what signet you think she's gonna have for her second signet. So number 4, and I thought this was really interesting. The fourth theory is Andarna knows how to kill venom. So it was mentioned that, 600 and some years ago, all the venom were destroyed. And the thing that destroyed them was extinct, became extinct after that. Well, Andarna is the only one left of her breed of dragon. She was a hatchling, or I guess not even a hatchling. She was in an egg 650 years prior, okay? And she was left behind for a specific reason. Well, we think that it was for the wardstone. That someone thought, hey, we need to leave the 7th breed behind because maybe the venom come back and the wards go down and they need the 7th breed. Well, the only people that know this, other than when Violet figured it out in the book, were the elders. Now, do the elders know that Andarna can kill venom? I don't know. We don't know. So here's the lore. Navarre lore says something killed off the venom many years ago and they were believed to have gone extinct. That's what I said kind of earlier. Andarna is the only iridescent dragon left. As far as we know, there's no more eggs. She is the only one. She is the head of her den. And that's why the elders let her bond when she was a Feathertail. Because she was the only one of her den. She also said that she waited to hatch until she heard about the new general's daughter and how she was weak and this and that. And Andarna said she waited until Violet's 18th year to hatch. She told Violet, you would be mine. And Violet's like, well, how did you even know that I was going to go into the Rider's Quadrant? Don't quote me, but I think Andarna kind of just smiled at her or like sniffed or something or whatever. I don't even think she commented on that. You don't question dragons, okay? So here's the last theory, and it is actually really interesting. I think it's got a high probability of it coming to somewhat fruition. In what way, I'm not sure. But it's just interesting, okay? And it kind of makes sense. So, the 5th theory we're going to talk about is Noland is alive and is either the sage or I think the top is called a maven. I think. It starts with an N. I'd have to pull my book and find that excerpt or whatever you call it that's at the top on what they are, because it tells you the line of the venom, their authority level. So, into the theory. Nolan was a siphon, okay? Just like Sloane. Well, it said, so Nolan died saving Brennan. Well, we find out that he saved Brennan. We thought Nolan died trying to save Brennan, but failed. Okay, that's what we knew in the first book until the very end. All right, that Brennan was dead. Well, they say that Nolan trying to save Brennan about killed Taran. And it might have been just because Nolan tried to siphon as much power as possible from using Taran's power, and then also Taran to save Brennan. But, like, I mean, it says here, for Nolan to have burnt out, he would have had to drain himself and Taran's power to save Brennan. Well, we know Taran didn't die. But Brennan's alive, right? So for Nolan to have saved Brennan, Nolan would have been dead, and so would have Taran. But to save Brennan, did Nolan decide to siphon raw power from the ground, turning him venom, and a high venom at that? Because Venons start out with the red rings around their eyes, you know, and then as you draw more and more raw power, you get, cracks, redder eyes, the descriptions, like you get darker, basically, redder, you know? So with the amount of power that Nolan would have had to siphon from the ground to save Brennan, did he automatically move into a sage or a maven position? Like, that's an idea. Or has he continued for 6 years to siphon power? And that's what's now made him where he is at, if this theory is true. Now, if he did turn venom, you know, it says that Taran about died. So if he turned venom, did maybe Taran try to kill him because he's venom? And it's against everything that the dragons and Taran believes in. Is that why Taran almost died? I don't know. It's really interesting. But then I read a little bit more onto it, and, you know, Sagal and Taran are mated. They're mated dragons. But at the end, Sagal stood watch over Xaden, knowing what Xaden is, what Xaden did, and what he is now. Okay? So, like, she said, be careful what you say to him. She's still protecting Xaden, even though he's turned. And he's at the beginning stages, okay? We will not know. I guarantee you her next book is going to start right where we left off, okay? They're back at Basgath. So I think we're going to see a control struggle from Xaden, but it's in Violet's point of view, so we're just going to see it from her perspective and through conversations that her and Xaden have of him trying to maintain control. But it's also like, who all knows? Is it just Violet and the dragons, and they're bonded dragons? Aren't they the only ones that know that he's Venom? Or will we find out that he's actually told, you know, people that he's Venom? There's just a lot, you know, that could be. Going back to, I just had a thought, going back to, is Violet Venom or immune to being Venom, to become Venom or whatever? Well, there is a line from Taran, and I might butcher it, but it makes you think a little bit. He says, I know exactly who and what you are. The what is the question. Is she Venom? And Taran is okay with that? Or the what part could mean personality. It could mean all kinds of things. But he says, I know exactly who and what you are. Makes you think a little bit. But those are all of the theories that I thought were really interesting that came out from Iron Flame. Let me know some of your theories below. If there's any different ones that you've come across or you have thought of after you've read the book. Also, just comment down below if you want to comment on some of these 5 theories. Do you agree with the theory? Do you have a different opinion about that theory? I would love to have that discussion with you guys. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and be good people.
When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that you lost,